Betrayal changes you in ways that can't be undone. I learned that 8 years into my marriage to Sarah Morrison. 8 years I thought were solid, comfortable, safe. That illusion shattered the moment a stranger named Ellie Whitmore sat down at my table in a coffee shop and spoke 6 words that detonated my entire world. "Your wife is seeing my husband. My name is Adam Morrison, and I'm 35 years old." The shock lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then came the rage, ice-cold and calculating. Ellie had proof. Photos of Sarah with Damian Whitmore, Ellie's husband, hotel rooms, stolen afternoons, 4 months of lies while Sarah kissed me goodbye and told me she loved me. Sarah had been planning her exit, waiting for my big commission to clear before she left. Damian had been embezzling from his own business to fund their affair. They thought they were clever. They thought they'd win. They were wrong. I didn't become a victim that day. I became something else entirely, an architect of consequences. Ellie and I didn't just expose their affair. We systematically dismantled everything Sarah and Damian had built. We took everything they thought they'd walk away with and left them with nothing. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you'll understand why mercy wasn't an option, why justice required absolute destruction. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. That Tuesday started like any other Tuesday. I was supposed to be in a client meeting that got canceled last minute, so I ducked into a coffee shop near my office to catch up on emails. The place was half empty, quiet enough to focus. I had my laptop open, reviewing contracts for a commercial property deal I'd been working on for months. I didn't notice her walk in. Didn't see her scanning the room until she was standing right beside my table. "Adam Morrison?" I looked up. Mid-30s, red hair pulled back in a professional style, business suit that said she worked somewhere that mattered. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying recently. But what I saw in them now wasn't sadness. It was something harder, colder. "Yeah?" I said, confused. She sat down across from me without asking, placed her phone face up on the table between us. "Your wife is seeing my husband." For about 3 seconds, I thought she was insane. Some stranger with the wrong person, wrong table, wrong life. Then she swiped her phone screen. The first photo showed Sarah getting into a car. Not our car. Some silver sedan I didn't recognize. A man was holding the door open for her. Athletic build? Early 40s, maybe? Wearing expensive casual clothes. "That's my husband," the woman said. Her voice was steady despite the tremor underneath. "Damian Whitmore. And that's your wife, Sarah." She swiped again. Sarah and this Damian guy walking into a hotel lobby? Another swipe. Them in a parking garage, his hands on her waist, her face tilted up toward his. Kissing. My hands went cold. Actually cold. Like I'd stuck them in ice water. "I'm Ellie," the woman continued. "Ellie Whitmore. I hired a private investigator 2 weeks ago after I found charges on our credit card. I couldn't explain. Hotel rooms, dinner reservations at places we'd never been. Damian told me he was working late on a construction project." She looked at me with those hard eyes. "What did Sarah tell you?" My mouth was dry. "Marketing conferences, client dinners that ran late." "Right." Ellie's jaw tightened. "They meet every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Grand View Hotel downtown. Room 412. They have a standing reservation." The rage that flooded through me wasn't hot. It was ice cold, calculating, absolute. Sarah had looked me in the eye dozens of times over the past. How long? Months? She'd kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me, asked about my day, all while planning her afternoons with this piece of garbage. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. My voice sounded calm, controlled. I barely recognized it. "Why not just blow up your own marriage and move on?" Ellie leaned forward. "Because I want him destroyed. Not just divorced. Destroyed." And your wife, too. They don't get to walk away from this and start fresh with each other. They don't get their happy ending after what they've done to us." She paused. "I have evidence. Financial records showing he's been spending our savings on her. I have text message backups. I have leverage over his business. My father co-signed loans for his construction company. But I need your help. I need you angry enough to go the distance." I looked at this stranger, this woman who'd just detonated my entire world, and saw my own fury reflected back at me. "I'm angry enough," I said. "What's your plan?" We spent the next 2 hours in that coffee shop. Ellie had already done serious groundwork. She showed me everything. The affair timeline going back 4 months, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a piece of jewelry she'd found the receipt for. Expensive earrings Damien had bought for Sarah. "They're waiting for something," Ellie explained. "I think they're waiting to see if his new commercial development deal goes through. If it does, he'll have enough money to leave me without worrying about splitting assets." She looked at me carefully. "Your wife asked about your work lately? Any big deals closing soon?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, the riverfront property. She's been asking when the contracts finalize, how much my commission will be." "There it is," Ellie said. "She's waiting to see if you close it. They're both calculating their exits, making sure they can walk away with as much as possible. So we move first," I said, "before they're ready." Ellie smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was predatory. "Exactly. We expose them, isolate them, and take everything they thought they'd walk away with. We'll need more evidence first," I said, my mind already working through the logistics. Catch them completely off guard. "No room for excuses or damage control." "Agreed," Ellie said. She extended her hand across the table. "Partners?" I shook it. Her grip was firm, steady. "Partners." That evening, I went home like nothing had changed. Sarah was in the kitchen when I walked through the door, humming along to some pop song on the radio, stirring something on the stove. She looked up when she heard me, smiled that warm smile I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, and crossed the room to kiss my cheek. "Hey, babe," she said. "How was your day?" It took everything in me not to grab her by the shoulders and demand the truth right there. Every instinct screamed at me to confront her, to throw Ellie's evidence in her face and watch her scramble for excuses. But Ellie and I had agreed. We needed more ammunition first. We needed them comfortable, arrogant, convinced they were getting away with it. So I lied. Just like she'd been lying to me for 4 months. "Good," I said, setting my briefcase down. Client meeting got rescheduled, so I caught up on paperwork. "You?" "Oh, the usual chaos," Sarah said, waving a hand dismissively as she returned to the stove. "Marketing campaign deadlines, you know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. She'd spent her afternoon in a hotel room with Damien Whitmore, and now she was standing here cooking dinner like the devoted wife, humming along to the radio, playing her part perfectly. My hands clenched into fists. I forced them to relax. "Smells good," I said. "What are we having?" Over the next 7 days, I became a different person. On the surface, I was the same Adam Morrison, loving husband, reliable professional, guy who kissed his wife goodbye in the mornings and asked about her day over dinner. But underneath, I was gathering evidence and planning destruction. Ellie and I met in secret, coffee shops across town, a park bench during lunch breaks, anywhere Sarah and Damien wouldn't accidentally spot us together. We compared notes, shared discoveries, built our case piece by piece. "Look at this," Ellie said during one meeting, showing me bank statements on her tablet. "Damien's been pulling money from our joint savings account for months. Small amounts at first, 200 here, 300 there. But it adds up. He's taken almost $38,000. "For what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer made me sick. "Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts." Ellie's voice was ice cold. "I found the receipt for those earrings Sarah was wearing in your wedding anniversary photo on Facebook. The ones she told you were a great sale find." My jaw tightened. Damien bought those? With my money? Yes. I started my own investigation. I told Sarah I'd read an article about phone security and wanted to install a tracking app on both our phones, just in case either of us lost them. She barely paid attention, distracted by something on her laptop, and handed over her phone without question. The app showed me everything. Her real location every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. The Grandview Hotel. The texts she deleted immediately after sending them, thinking they were gone forever. They weren't. The app backed them up. Can't wait to see you Thursday. I've been thinking about you all morning. Adam's commission closes in 3 weeks. We should talk about timing. I love you. This will all be worth it soon. Each message was a knife twisting deeper, but I kept my face neutral, kept playing my part. I also discovered Sarah had opened a credit card I didn't know about. Separate statements going to her work email address. She'd been siphoning money into a linked savings account. $40,000 she'd hidden away, building her escape fund while I believed we were saving for our future together. She's waiting for your commission to close, Ellie said when I showed her the evidence. She wants to make sure she gets a piece of it in the divorce settlement before she leaves. That's exactly what she's doing, I agreed. Sarah had been unusually interested in the riverfront property deal lately, asking when contracts would finalize, how much I'd make, whether I was confident it would close. I'd thought she was being supportive, maybe planning a vacation to celebrate. She was calculating her exit strategy. They're both playing the same game, Ellie said, waiting for the perfect moment to leave us with maximum profit and minimum consequences. Then we don't give them that moment, I said. We move first. 6 days after Ellie had sat down at my table, we met at a quiet restaurant to finalize our plan. She had that predatory smile again, the one that said she was ready for war. Thursday afternoon, she said. They'll be at the Grandview again, same as always. But this time, we don't just take pictures from a distance. We walk in on them. With what backup? I asked. My attorney, Diane Parker. She'll document everything for the divorce proceedings. Ellie leaned forward. And Damien's business partner, Gerald Adamson. I called him this morning, told him there's an urgent situation involving company funds he needs to witness. He doesn't know what yet, but he'll be there. I understood immediately. You want them caught red-handed with no room for excuses, and you want the people who matter to their futures to see exactly what they are. Exactly. Ellie's eyes gleamed. Thursday afternoon, 3 p.m., room 412. We end this. Thursday afternoon, I stood outside room 412 at the Grandview Hotel with 3 other people who were about to witness the end of 2 marriages. Ellie stood beside me, perfectly composed in her business suit, holding a key card she'd obtained from the hotel manager. Apparently, her family had connections, and the manager owed her a favor. Next to her was Diane Parker, Ellie's attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, with a leather portfolio under one arm and the kind of expression that said she'd seen everything and wouldn't be shocked by what came next. Gerald Adamson stood slightly apart from us, clearly confused but concerned. Damien's business partner was a solid-looking guy in his 50s, wearing work clothes like he'd come straight from a construction site, which he probably had. I still don't understand what this is about, Gerald said quietly. You will in about 30 seconds, Ellie told him. And I promise you, you need to see this. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. This was it. The moment Sarah's carefully constructed lies would collapse completely. Ellie looked at me. Ready? Absolutely. She slid the key card through the reader. The lock clicked green. The door swung open, and there they were. Sarah and Damien, half-dressed on the hotel bed, frozen mid-kiss like we'd hit pause on a movie neither of us wanted to watch. For one perfect second, nobody moved. Sarah's eyes went wide, her face draining of color. Damien just stared at the 4 of us standing in the doorway. Then, everything exploded. "What the hell?" Damien shouted, scrambling off the bed and grabbing for his clothes. "You can't just—" "Hello, darling," Ellie said, her voice dripping with venom. "Having fun spending our money?" Sarah's eyes locked on mine. The horror on her face should have given me satisfaction. Instead, it just made me colder. "Adam, this isn't—" she started. "Isn't what?" I cut her off, my voice hard as granite. "Isn't you screwing your boyfriend in a hotel room every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months? Isn't you lying to my face while planning to leave me once I close my big deal?" I stepped closer, and she actually flinched. "Save your breath, Sarah. We know everything." Gerald looked between Damien and Ellie, realization dawning on his face. "Jesus Christ, Damien. You've been having an affair? With company resources?" "Gerald, listen," Damien started, pulling his shirt on with shaking hands. "No," Ellie interrupted. "You listen. All of you listen." She held up her phone. "I have 4 months of financial records showing Damien embezzling from our joint accounts and his business accounts to fund this affair. I have text messages, photos, and recorded conversations. I have everything I need to bury you in court and destroy your business reputation." Diane stepped forward. "All business. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Whitmore. I'm Diane Parker, Mrs. Whitmore's attorney. You should both know that as of this moment, you're being documented for adultery. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery absolutely affects asset division and can impact alimony. Everything you say and do from this point forward will be used in legal proceedings." Sarah found her voice, desperate and shrill. "Adam, please, can we just talk about this privately?" "Why?" I asked coldly. "So you can spin more lies? Tell me how it didn't mean anything? How you were going to tell me?" I laughed, and it sounded cruel even to my own ears. "You don't get privacy anymore, Sarah. You gave that up when you decided our marriage vows meant nothing." Damien, trying to salvage something, turned to Gerald. "This is personal business. It has nothing to do with the company." "The hell it doesn't," Gerald snapped. "If you've been using company funds for personal expenses, that's embezzlement. That's fraud. That affects me, Damien. That affects every employee we have." He looked at Ellie. "How much are we talking?" $38,000 over 4 months, Ellie said. "Hotel rooms, gifts, dinners, all charged to accounts he claimed were for client entertainment and business development." Gerald's face went red. "You son of a bitch." Sarah kept trying to explain, to justify, to minimize. "Adam, you don't understand. I fell out of love with you. I tried to make it work, but Damien understands me in ways you don't." "Stop," I said, and something in my voice made her shut her mouth. "You're not the victim here, Sarah. You don't get to rewrite this story where you're some misunderstood wife in a bad marriage. We were fine until you decided you wanted something else and didn't have the guts to be honest about it. You're a cheater and a liar, and now everyone knows it." The power in that room had shifted completely. Sarah and Damien weren't in control anymore. We were. When we finally left that hotel room, Ellie turned to me in the hallway, and despite everything, there was something almost like satisfaction in her eyes. "That's just the beginning," she said. Ellie didn't waste time. The morning after the hotel confrontation, she filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial fraud. Diane Parker moved fast, freezing their joint accounts and securing emergency orders, protecting Ellie's assets before Damien could hide anything else. But the real nuclear option came from Ellie's father. Mr. Whitmore had co-signed loans for Damien's construction company, nearly $200,000 worth. Within 48 hours of learning what Damien had done to his daughter, he called every single one of them in. Damien had 90 days to pay up or face foreclosure on his business assets. "He's done," Ellie told me over coffee 3 days after the confrontation. "There's no way he can come up with that kind of cash in 90 days. My father made sure of it." I filed for divorce from Sarah that same week. Thomas Rodriguez, my attorney, was a bulldog of a lawyer who'd handled dozens of contentious divorces. He laid out the reality right away. Illinois is a no-fault state, he explained in his office. Adultery doesn't automatically destroy her financially, but it gives us leverage in negotiations. And if she tries to play games with asset disclosure, we'll bury her. I had no intention of playing fair. Sarah had spent 4 months lying to my face, planning her exit, calculating how much she could take from me. Now it was my turn. I made sure everyone in Sarah's professional circle knew exactly what she'd done. Not gossip, not rumors, just facts. I reached out to people I knew at her firm, mentioned in passing that I'd discovered Sarah had been conducting a months-long affair during work hours, lying about client meetings to cover hotel room appointments. Word spreads fast in professional circles. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Sarah and I had a meeting with our attorneys present. She looked thinner, more tired. Good. "You're trying to sabotage my career," she accused, her voice sharp with desperation. "Telling people about our personal business." "I'm not sabotaging anything," I replied calmly. "I'm telling the truth. You sabotaged your own career when you lied to your employer about where you were spending your afternoons, when you used company time to conduct an affair. I just made sure the right people had accurate information." Thomas nodded. "Your client misrepresented her activities to her employer, used company time for personal matters, and engaged in conduct that violated her firm's ethics policies. Mr. Morrison simply provided factual information when asked." Sarah's attorney, a nervous-looking guy named Marcus Brennan, shifted uncomfortably. "That's still what?" I interrupted. "Still consequences for her actions?" "Yeah, it is." It took less than a week after that for Sarah's boss to discover the truth about her client meetings. The marketing firm had strict policies about personal conduct and honesty. Sarah was quietly asked to resign. She showed up at my apartment that night, pounding on the door. I didn't answer. I just stood there listening to her cry and shout about how I'd ruined her life. I hadn't ruined anything. She'd done that herself. Meanwhile, Ellie and I became genuine friends, bonded by shared betrayal and shared purpose. We met regularly to coordinate our divorce strategies, share information, and support each other through the emotional devastation both our spouses had caused. "Gerald forced Damien into a corner," Ellie told me one evening. "Buy him out, or be bought out. Damien doesn't have the liquid capital for either option." Gerald Adamson had been disgusted by the embezzlement and betrayal. He wanted nothing to do with Damien anymore. And who could blame him? Damien had stolen from their company to fund an affair. The business started falling apart. Clients started backing out of contracts. Employees started looking for other jobs. Damien was watching everything he'd built collapse around him, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. 6 weeks after the hotel room confrontation, Ellie called me with new information. "They're talking," she said. "Sarah's been texting Damien. My attorney's discovery process got his phone records. They're trying to figure out how to survive this together." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Let them try. They deserve each other. They think they can weather this," Ellie continued. "Build something new once the divorces are final." "They're delusional," I said. "We're not done with them yet." Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then, "No, we're not." 6 weeks after the hotel confrontation, my riverfront property deal finally closed. $180,000, the biggest commission of my career. I'd spent 18 months on that deal, courting the client, negotiating terms, navigating zoning issues, pushing through financing hurdles. Every bit of that work had been mine. But Sarah knew about it. She'd been tracking the timeline for months, asking when contracts would finalize, how much I'd make. Now I understood why. She'd been calculating her exit strategy, waiting to leave until after I closed so she could take as much as possible. Her attorney filed a motion to include the commission in marital asset division within 48 hours of the closing. "She has no right to that money," I told Thomas in his office. I earned that commission on a deal I started before I even knew about the affair." Thomas leaned back in his chair, expression serious. "Marital property laws are tricky, Adam. If you earned it during the marriage, she has a claim. Illinois courts don't care about fault. They care about when assets were acquired." My jaw tightened. "So she cheats on me for 4 months, lies to my face, plans her escape, and still gets to profit from my work. Unless we find leverage," Thomas said carefully, "something that changes the equation." That night, I called Ellie and explained the situation. She was quiet for a moment. Then, what if Sarah had her own windfall we didn't know about? What if she'd been hiding assets? "You think she was?" "I know Damien was," Ellie said. "He had accounts I didn't know about until my attorney dug deeper. If Sarah's been planning this exit for months, why wouldn't she be stashing money somewhere?" She had a point. Sarah was calculating, methodical. If she'd opened that secret credit card, what else had she hidden? We started digging. I accessed old bank statements, looking for irregular transfers. Ellie helped me cross-reference Sarah's disclosed accounts against what I knew about our finances. And there it was. Nearly $40,000 Sarah had failed to disclose in her initial divorce filings. A separate savings account under her maiden name, Sarah Bradford, at a completely different bank. Small deposits every month for the past year and a half. Money skimmed from our joint accounts, from her bonuses, from cash she'd claimed went to shopping or lunches with friends. She'd been building her escape fund long before the affair even started. Thomas's eyes lit up when I showed him the evidence. "This is perjury." She signed a sworn statement declaring all marital assets. She lied under oath. "Can we use this?" "Hell yes, we can use this." He was already pulling up legal forms on his computer. "I'm filing an emergency motion today. Hiding assets, acting in bad faith during discovery. Judges hate this kind of thing." The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Sarah sat at her attorney's table looking small and scared. Marcus Brennan kept whispering to her, probably trying to prepare her for what was coming. But there was no preparing for this. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s named Judge Catherine Brennan, reviewed the documents Thomas had submitted. Her expression grew darker with each page. "Mrs. Morrison," she said finally, her voice cold and precise, "you signed a sworn statement declaring all marital assets. Do you understand what that means?" Sarah's voice trembled. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then explain to me why you failed to disclose a savings account containing $38,400. Marcus jumped in. "Your Honor, there was some confusion about what needed to be disclosed." "Confusion?" Judge Brennan cut him off. "Your client opened an account under her maiden name specifically to hide it from her spouse. She made regular deposits for 18 months. She signed a legal document swearing she'd disclosed everything, knowing full well she hadn't. That's not confusion, Counselor. That's perjury." Sarah's face went white. "Your Honor." Marcus tried again. "I'm not finished." The judge's voice could have cut steel. "This court takes such violations extremely seriously. Mrs. Morrison, you committed perjury. You deliberately concealed assets in an attempt to defraud both this court and your spouse." Thomas stood. "Your Honor, given Mrs. Morrison's demonstrated dishonesty and bad faith, we request the court reconsider her claims to my client's recent commission. She's proven she can't be trusted to act honestly in these proceedings." Judge Brennan nodded slowly. "I agree. Mrs. Morrison's hidden assets will be immediately included in the marital asset division. Furthermore, given her lack of credibility and fraudulent conduct, I'm substantially reducing her claim to Mr. Morrison's commission." The ruling came down hard. I kept the majority of my commission, over 70%. Sarah's hidden money was split evenly between us, meaning she actually lost money through her deception, and the judge issued a criminal referral for perjury to the state's attorney's office. Sarah looked like she might throw up. Marcus was scrambling, trying to salvage something, but it was over. The judge had made her decision. When we left the courthouse, Thomas clapped me on the shoulder. "That's as good as it gets, Adam. You won." The prosecutor ultimately declined to pursue the perjury charges. Not enough public interest, they said. But the threat alone had been devastating. Sarah had tried to steal from me one last time, and it had blown up in her face spectacularly. Justice felt cold and clean and absolutely perfect. 3 months after that hotel room door swung open, Ellie and I sat across from each other at Meridian, one of those upscale downtown restaurants where the wine list costs more than some people's car payments. We'd earned this: every expensive bite, every glass of wine, every moment of this celebration. "I still can't believe Judge Brennan's face when she read Sarah's financials," Ellie said, laughing. Her red hair caught the candlelight, and I realized how much lighter she seemed now, how much we both did. "The look on Sarah's attorney was better," I said. "Marcus completely fell apart trying to explain why his client committed perjury. We'd become genuinely close over these past months, closer than I'd been to anyone in years, maybe ever. There's something about surviving a war together that bonds people in ways normal relationships never could." Ellie understood what I'd been through because she'd lived it too. She got the anger, the need for justice, the cold satisfaction of watching our enemies crumble. But she was more than just a fellow survivor. She was brilliant and fierce, and funny in ways I hadn't gotten to see during the early days of our revenge campaign. Tonight, watching her laugh about something her attorney had said, I realized something that made my chest tight. I was happy, genuinely, purely happy for the first time in months. "Thank you," I said suddenly. Ellie looked surprised. Her wineglass paused halfway to her lips. "For what?" "For sitting down at my table that day. For trusting me. For fighting alongside me instead of letting them get away with it." She set down her glass and reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Her touch was warm and steady. "We saved each other, Adam. You know that, right?" I did know that. Sarah and Damien would have gotten exactly what they wanted if Ellie hadn't walked into that coffee shop. They'd have timed their exits perfectly, maximized their financial gains, and ridden off into the sunset together while we picked up the pieces alone. Instead, they'd lost everything. We finished dinner slowly, neither of us in a hurry to end the evening. When we finally left Meridian around 9:30, Ellie slipped her hand into mine. It felt natural. Right. We were walking toward the parking garage, still holding hands, when I saw them. Sarah and Damien, coming out of Charlie's Diner 2 blocks down. It was one of those cheap 24-hour places with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like dishwater. The kind of restaurant we never would have gone to when we were married. They looked terrible. Sarah had lost weight. Too much weight. Her clothes hung loose, and even from a distance I could see the exhaustion etched into her face. Damien looked just as bad. Worn down, defeated, like a man who'd been fighting a losing battle for months. Because he had been. Sarah's eyes went wide when she spotted us. Saw me with Ellie, both of us dressed nicely, clearly on a date, clearly happy. Her face crumpled. "Adam?" she said weakly. I didn't let go of Ellie's hand. "Sarah." "Damien." Damien's jaw clenched, anger flashing across his exhausted features. "You two proud of yourselves? Destroying people's lives?" Ellie actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle, a genuine, amused laugh. "We didn't destroy anything, Damien. You did that yourselves. We just made sure you didn't profit from it." "You've ruined everything," Sarah said, and tears started sliding down her cheeks. "I lost my job. I'm living in a studio apartment. My family won't speak to me. Part of me, some small, distant part, expected to feel pity. 8 years of marriage should count for something, right? But I felt nothing except cold satisfaction. Consequences, I said simply. You made choices, Sarah. These are the consequences. You don't get to cheat and lie, and then complain when people hold you accountable. Damien took a step forward, his body language aggressive. "You think you're so righteous? You're just bitter and—" My voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made Damien freeze mid-sentence. "Walk away, Damien. You don't get to talk to me like you have any moral high ground. You're a cheater and a fraud. Your business is failing, your wife left you, and your reputation is ruined. That's all on you. Now walk away before you make this worse for yourself." Something in my eyes must have convinced him. Damien grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her past us, both of them scurrying away like the defeated cowards they'd become. Ellie looked up at me, impressed. That was satisfying. It really was, I agreed. But as we walked to the car, something shifted inside me. That encounter, seeing them broken and desperate while Ellie and I stood strong and happy, that was the climax. The peak of our revenge. We'd won completely and utterly. They'd lost everything. So what came next? 1 week after that encounter outside the restaurant, Sarah showed up at my apartment. I opened the door expecting a delivery and found my ex-wife instead. She looked terrible, gaunt, thin in a way that went beyond weight loss. Her clothes hung loose, her hair needed washing, and her eyes had that hollow, desperate look of someone who'd been barely sleeping. "I need help," she said, before I could close the door. "You need to leave," I replied, already reaching for the handle. "Adam, please." Her voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. I can't find work. I'm behind on rent. I don't have anywhere else to turn." For about 3 seconds, I felt something. A flicker of pity, maybe. 8 years of marriage don't disappear overnight, even when they end in betrayal. Then I remembered her in that hotel room. Remembered her lies, her cold calculation as she'd planned to leave me once I closed my big deal. "You have family," I said. "Ask them. They won't help me." Tears started sliding down her cheeks. "Not after what I did." "Then you're learning what consequences feel like," I said. "Goodbye, Sarah." I closed the door in her face. I expected her to leave. She didn't. Over the next week, Sarah called constantly. Text messages flooded my phone, long, rambling paragraphs about how she'd made a mistake, how she still loved me, how we could fix things if I'd just give her another chance. "Adam, I know I hurt you, but we had 8 years together. That has to mean something. I was confused. I made terrible choices, but I never stopped loving you. Please, can we just talk?" Delete. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you. I have nothing left. You were my whole world, and I threw it away, and I can't live with what I've done. Please, delete." She started showing up at my office. Security had to escort her out twice. My assistant, Jennifer Martinez, gave me worried looks every time Sarah called the front desk asking to speak with me. "She sounds really unstable, Adam," Jennifer said quietly. "Should we be concerned?" "Just keep refusing her calls," I told her. "She'll eventually give up." But Sarah didn't give up. She got worse. 3 days after she'd started her harassment campaign, I met Ellie for coffee and found her looking exhausted. "Damien's doing the same thing," she said, before I could even ask. "Calling at all hours, leaving voicemails about how I destroyed him, how we could have worked things out if I'd just given him a chance." She rubbed her temples. "Last night, he called at 2 a.m, drunk, crying about how I ruined his life." My jaw clenched. They don't get to do this. They don't get to cheat and lie, and then play the victim when their lives fall apart. "I know," Ellie agreed. "But Adam, we need to be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. I should have listened more carefully to that warning." 2 days later, Thomas Rodriguez called me with bad news. "Sarah filed a harassment claim against you," he said bluntly. "She's claiming you've been stalking her, intimidating her, showing up at her apartment and workplace." The rage that flooded through me was immediate and scorching. That's complete bullshit. I've been avoiding her at every turn. She's the one who won't leave me alone. "I know," Thomas said. And we can prove it. I need you to send me every text message, every voicemail, every email she sent you. I also need statements from your office security and your assistant documenting her attempts to contact you. She's lying, I said, my voice hard. She's making this up because she wants to hurt me. Of course she is, Thomas agreed. But it's still a legal claim we have to address. It's a nuisance and a distraction, but we'll handle it. I wanted to put my fist through a wall. That same afternoon, Ellie called me, her voice shaking. Damien confronted me, she said, in the parking garage at my office. He was waiting by my car when I came out after work. My blood went cold. What happened? Are you okay? He started yelling about how I ruined his life, how everything was my fault, how I turned his own kids against him. Her breath hitched. Adam, he was so angry. I thought he might actually hurt me. Did you call the police? Yes. They came, took statements. Diane's filing for a restraining order tomorrow. She paused. But I'm scared. He looked unhinged. Come to my place, I said immediately. Right now. You shouldn't be alone. An hour later, Ellie was sitting on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, still shaken from the encounter. I made her tea she didn't drink and sat beside her. They're trying to drag us back down, she said quietly. Even in defeat, they're trying to make us miserable. They won't win, I promised. We've come too far. But sitting there in the dimming evening light, I wondered if victory had been worth it. We'd gotten our revenge, served our justice, destroyed our enemies, but at what cost? Sarah and Damien were broken, yes, but they were also unpredictable and possibly dangerous. And Ellie and I, for all our triumph, were dealing with the aftermath of months of anger and conflict. Was this what winning looked like? The turning point came 3 days later, when Thomas Rodriguez sat me down in his office and laid out reality with the bluntness I'd come to appreciate. Sarah's harassment claim is going nowhere, he said, leaning back in his leather chair. Her attorney knows it. I know it. It's grasping at straws. He paused, fixing me with a steady look. But here's the thing, Adam. These people are drowning, and drowning people try to pull others down with them. You need to cut off all contact. Stop engaging. Let her spiral on her own while you move on with your life. His words hit harder than I expected. I'd been so focused on fighting back against every accusation, every manipulation, that I hadn't considered the simplest solution. Just stop engaging. Block her number, Thomas continued. Ignore her emails. Document every attempted contact for the record. But don't respond. Not once. She's trying to keep you trapped in this drama because it's the only power she has left. Don't give it to her. He was right. Revenge had been necessary. Justice had been served. But continued engagement was just giving Sarah power over my present and future. Ellie came to the same conclusion after meeting with Diane Parker that afternoon. Diane told me we won, Ellie said when we met for coffee that evening. She said now I need to actually claim my victory by living well, by stopping looking back. Thomas said the same thing, I admitted, that we need to cut them off completely. Ellie nodded slowly. So we do it. Right now, no more responding, no more engaging. We just move forward. It sounded so simple. It felt like liberation. That night, I blocked Sarah's number, deleted her emails without reading them, set up filters so anything from her went straight to a folder Thomas could review for documentation purposes, but that I'd never see. The silence was immediate and profound. 2 days later, Sarah showed up at my office one last time. Jennifer buzzed me. She's here again, Jennifer said quietly. Security's already on their way. Good, I said. And Jennifer? After security escorts her out, I need you to document exactly what happened. Time, date, what she said. Everything. I watched through my office window as 2 security guards, Mark Brennan and Lisa Kowalski, firmly but professionally escorted Sarah out of the building. She was crying, pleading, making a scene in the lobby. I felt nothing, just cold, clear purpose. That afternoon, I filed for a restraining order. Thomas had all the documentation we needed. The harassment claim she'd fabricated, the constant calls and emails, the repeated unwanted visits to my workplace, the pattern of escalating behavior. The judge granted it within a week. Damien, meanwhile, made an even stupider mistake. 4 days after Ellie got her restraining order, he showed up at her house at 9 o'clock at night, pounding on the door and demanding to talk. Ellie called 911 immediately. The police arrested him right there in her driveway. He spent the night in jail and faced a judge the next morning who gave him a stern warning about violating court orders and the consequences if he tried it again. After that, Damien finally stopped. With our tormentors finally, truly out of our lives, Ellie and I could breathe again. We started dating properly, not as co-conspirators in revenge, but as two people genuinely interested in each other. Without the constant weight of betrayal and warfare hanging over us, I got to see sides of Ellie I'd only glimpsed before. She was brilliant in business, launching consulting projects with a strategic mind that reminded me why she'd been so effective in dismantling Damien's life. She was fierce in her convictions, refusing to compromise on honesty or integrity. But she was also kind in ways that surprised me. Funny, with a sharp wit that made me laugh over dinners that had nothing to do with revenge or divorce proceedings. Thoughtful, remembering small details about my day and following up days later. One evening, about 4 months after that coffee shop meeting, we were at her apartment, and she made this incredible pasta dish, something her grandmother had taught her years ago. The kitchen smelled like garlic and fresh basil, and I found myself thinking about Sunday dinners at my parents' house when I was a kid. Everyone crowded around the table arguing about football. "What are you smiling about?" Ellie asked, catching my expression. "Just this," I said honestly. "You. Us. The fact that something good came out of all that destruction." She set down her wine glass and came around the counter, wrapping her arms around me. "We saved each other, Adam," she said softly. "You know that, right?" I did know that. 6 months after Ellie had sat down at my table and spoken those 6 devastating words, my divorce from Sarah was finalized. The judge signed the papers, and just like that, 8 years of marriage officially ended. 3 weeks later, Ellie's divorce from Damien was done. We were free. We celebrated by booking a week in Colorado, hiking, talking, just being two normal people without the weight of betrayal crushing us. On our second evening there, watching the sunset from a mountain overlook, Ellie leaned against me and said, "I never thought I'd feel this way again." Happy, hopeful, safe. "Neither did I admitted, pulling her closer. "Thank you for walking up to my table that day." She smiled. "Thank you for listening." 1 year after Ellie sat down at my table in that coffee shop, we moved in together. Not because we were rushing or trying to replace what we'd lost, but because we'd built something genuine, something honest, everything our previous marriages hadn't been. Her father helped us move into the new place, a townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing too flashy, just right for two people starting over. When the last box was inside, Mr. Whitmore pulled me aside. "Adam," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "I want you to know something. You helped my daughter when she needed it most. That means everything to me. Welcome to the family, son." The gratitude in his voice was real, and it hit me harder than I'd expected. My mother had an even simpler assessment when she met Ellie properly for the first time at Sunday dinner. "She's got spine," Mom told me in the kitchen while Ellie was in the other room. "That's what you need, Adam. Someone strong. Someone who deserves you." She was right. My real estate career flourished without the constant distraction of a failing marriage weighing me down. I closed deal after deal, built a reputation as one of the most reliable brokers in the city. My name meant something again, something good. Ellie launched her own consulting business, leveraging her experience and her father's connections to build something successful and entirely hers. Watching her thrive was incredible. She'd taken everything Damien had tried to destroy and used it as fuel. We thrived while Sarah and Damien collapsed. 2 years after the hotel room confrontation, I ran into Gerald Adamson at a business networking event downtown. "Adam Morrison," he said, extending his hand with a genuine smile. "Good to see you. How's everything?" "Really good, actually," I said honestly. "How are you? How's business?" "Strong. Better than ever, honestly." Gerald lowered his voice slightly. "Losing Damien as a partner was the best thing that could have happened to the company. You hear what happened to him?" I hadn't kept tabs, deliberately. "No. What?" "He's working as a project manager for someone else's company now. Entry-level salary, can you believe it? He tried to start his own firm after the bankruptcy, but couldn't get financing. Couldn't get clients either. His reputation is shot." Gerald shook his head. "Man destroyed his own life." "He did," I agreed simply. "What about Sarah?" Gerald asked. "You ever hear anything?" "Not in a long time," I said. "My wife ran into her a few months ago. She's working retail now, part-time, living with a roommate somewhere out in the suburbs. Apparently, she's been trying to rebuild bridges with her family, but they're not interested. It should have made me happy, hearing about Sarah's downfall. Instead, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no residual pain, just complete indifference. Sarah and Damien had become irrelevant. They were footnotes in a chapter of my life that had closed and locked behind me. The real story was what came after. 3 years after Ellie had approached my table, I proposed to her on a quiet beach at sunset. Nothing elaborate, just the two of us, the ocean, and a simple question. "Ellie Whitmore," I said, getting down on one knee in the sand, "will you build a life with me?" She said yes, with tears in her eyes and laughter in her voice. We got married 4 months later, in a small ceremony, with close friends and family. No drama, no hidden agendas, no lies. Just two people who'd been through hell and chosen each other anyway. The reception was at a beautiful venue overlooking the river. Intimate, warm, filled with people who genuinely loved us. Mr. Whitmore gave a toast that had everyone alternating between laughter and tears. "My daughter learned the hard way that not everyone deserves trust," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But she also learned that some people are worth fighting for." Adam proved himself worthy every single day. "Welcome to the family, son." The applause was thunderous. Later in the evening, my best friend Mike Jensen pulled me aside near the bar. "You did it, man," Mike said, clapping me on the shoulder. "You really did it. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something good." I looked across the room at Ellie, laughing with her cousins, her face lit up with genuine joy. Mike was right. I had. 5 years after Ellie sat down at my table in that coffee shop and spoke 6 words that detonated my world, I can tell you exactly where everyone ended up. Sarah never recovered professionally. She's still working retail, part-time at some department store in the suburbs, still living in that studio apartment, still trying to convince anyone who'll listen that she's the victim in all this, that her evil ex-husband ruined her life. Her family maintains minimal contact. Last I heard, they see her maybe twice a year, out of obligation more than affection. She never remarried. According to the occasional updates that filter through mutual acquaintances, she's bitter and alone, constantly rehashing the past, blaming me for consequences she brought on herself. I didn't ruin Sarah's life. She did that herself the moment she decided our marriage vows meant nothing. Damien fared even worse. The bankruptcy destroyed him financially. His reputation in the construction industry is completely unsalvageable. Word got out about the embezzlement, the affair, the business implosion. Nobody wants to work with a guy who steals from his own company to fund a side piece. He's still in that project manager position Gerald mentioned, making a fraction of what he used to earn. But the real devastation? His kids. His relationship with his children suffered badly. They blamed him for the divorce, for the family's financial struggles, for everything falling apart. From what Ellie's heard, he's essentially estranged from them now. They want nothing to do with him. I occasionally wonder if they ever think about that hotel room, about the moment 4 people walked through the door and their entire world imploded in front of witnesses. I wonder if they ever take responsibility for what they did, or if they'll spend the rest of their lives blaming us for holding them accountable. I don't wonder too hard, though. They're not worth the mental energy. As for Ellie and me, we're thriving. We have a beautiful home in a neighborhood we love. We have careers we're genuinely proud of, work that fulfills us and pays well. We have friends and family who love and support us, who celebrate our successes and stand by us when things get tough. And we have each other. 6 months ago, Ellie told me she was pregnant. We're having a daughter. We've already picked out her name, Riley Whitmore Morrison. A combination of both our names, a symbol of what we built together from the ruins of what others tried to destroy. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I think about that Tuesday afternoon in the coffee shop, about how a stranger walked up to my table and changed my life forever by telling me a truth I didn't want to hear, about how anger and pain and betrayal transformed into justice, revenge, and ultimately something better than I could have imagined. Sarah and Damien thought they were so clever. They thought they'd get away with it, thought they'd ride off into the sunset together with our money and our blessings, leaving us behind to pick up the pieces. They were wrong. Ellie and I didn't just get revenge. We got justice. We protected ourselves, destroyed the people who'd wronged us, and built new lives from the ashes of our old ones. That's not just winning. That's complete and utter domination. And here's what I learned through all of it. The best revenge isn't just destroying your enemies. It's building something so good, so strong, so unshakable that they can never touch you again. It's creating a life so fulfilling that they become irrelevant. Footnotes in a story that's moved far beyond them. Sarah and Damien are alone, broken, and irrelevant. Ellie and I are happy, successful, and in love. We won, completely and utterly. And damn, does victory taste sweet? I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.